Om Shanti, a greeting of peace to my sisters and my brothers. We're looking at a subject of how spirituality can help us in our daily life. And now, let's look at whether it's possible to come to a state of contentment even though we live in a materialistic world in which constantly desires multiply. Is it possible to come to contentment? It's been said that there are 3 factors of contentment: to be content with the self, to be content in my relationship with others around me, to be able to be content in my relationship with God. And of course, I can only be content with others around me if they also are content with me. In the same way, I can only be content in my relationship with God when I'm clear in my mind that God is content with me. Looking at the situation where consumerism, commercialism, materialism seem to be the norm of the day, we see how even little children constantly have their desires multiplying and ignited through things like television, for example. We live in a world where everything is definitely focused on through the media, and whether it's advertising through poster campaigns, through the print, through electronic media, everything seems to be fueling the desires within the human individual in which I want, and I want more. It is impossible for me to be peaceful and happy if I'm not content. And whilst I'm trying to struggle with desires and trying to fulfill my desires or fulfill the desires of those around me, it's not possible for me to have stability of mind in which I can think clearly and move in the right manner. In a state of discontent, which seems to be the universal situation today, it's also become a culture of moan and groan. Constantly something to moan about, a culture of blame and complain, in which there are always external things that I blame, always things that I'm going to be complaining about. One of the first lessons of spirituality is that I am responsible for the thoughts that I create. I am responsible for the conditions of my own inner world, which means I am responsible for my emotions and my feelings, and I am responsible for the circumstances around me. Does it sound too much? And yet, how can it be anything else? How is it possible in a situation where I understand that there always has to be cause and effect, and whatever causes there are lead to certain effects, and whatever action there is, there has to be reaction of that. The law of karma, the law of the philosophy of action, tells me that even though I don't always like it, I have to accept responsibility, that yes, truly, I am the creator of my inner world, but also I am the creator of the world around me. And so in terms of trying to come to a state of contentment, it isn't a question of how much I have. It isn't a question of how much I don't have. It isn't a factor of what more I would like to have. Keep a wish list, and the wish list is never ever going to actually be completed. Think back to the situation of when you were a child and you thought that a bicycle was absolute heaven. If you could only have a bicycle, you'd have everything. Well, you got your bicycle probably, but what happened after that? Well, after getting a bicycle, probably wanted a motorcycle. And maybe you even got that. But were you content? No. Then the next step was a car. Then probably the next step is a bigger car. And so multiply all the desires and you can see how rapidly they breed and they just grow and grow. Same thing. Perhaps I want just a tiny little space for myself. And having received that, I want a big room. Then I want a big house. Not just one room, but many rooms. And so there really isn't a limit. But I can look at it in another way. I can say to myself that however much I have is actually what nature, the divine, destiny has provided for me, knowing what my needs are. It's a reality in the world of nature. The divine looks after everything, the needs of the whole of creation, and surely if I'm following the path of honesty, if I'm following God's instructions in my life, surely my needs will definitely be met. It was Mahatma Gandhi who said that there's enough in the world for everyone's needs, but there just isn't enough for anyone's greed. And the conditions today are indicating this. The resources of the world's planet in the hands of a few, and for the majority, a state of deprivation. Even if I can't change the conditions of the world immediately, I can take a step towards it by changing my own attitude and perception and the conditions around me. And then perhaps I can start making a dent in the problems of the world also. But let me begin with myself. It's possible to simplify my life and come back to a question of what are my needs rather than what are my desires. My basic needs are actually not very much at all. For most of us, our needs are being met. And so, let me create a consciousness of contentment and satisfaction within myself, appreciating that which I have. So often we don't look at what we have, we look at what others have. And if I'm focusing my vision externally on the things out there, then yes, I'm going to say I want more and more and more. But if I can see what it is I have already, then I'm going to start feeling a state of contentment. There's another factor also. When I'm looking at what others have, I'm not looking at the effort that they've made to achieve whatever it is they have. For example, if I'm looking at my neighbor's garden and the garden is full of beautiful flowers and I say, oh, I wish my garden were like that. Well, in the time when my neighbor was digging the earth and working hard in the garden, cleaning out the weeds and planting all the seeds and watering those seeds, I wasn't willing to make that effort. I wasn't willing to do that work. And so when I was being lazy and sitting down in a comfortable armchair, my neighbor was working hard. I don't remember that. I just see the results and I see the beautiful flowers in my neighbor's garden. But in fact, there's been effort invested that has brought those beautiful results. And if today I'm willing to make the same effort, whatever is the goal that I set for myself, I'll be able to achieve those results also. And so contentment also comes from knowing that if I'm honest in my effort, the results I'm going to receive are going to be absolutely what is right. There can be no question of injustice or inequality in this. Effort and result, there's a law which is universal, which is cosmic, which makes sure that both come out equally balanced. effort and the result of the effort that's been made. And so to come to a state of contentment within myself, let me deal with desires. Let me appreciate the gifts that God has already given me. When there's a sense of inner gratitude and thankfulness, then I feel very content. I feel very happy. If I were to write down all the gifts that God has given me, even up to today, never mind what more I would like to have tomorrow, but truly, through my whole life, let me just simply thank God for what God has given me up until this moment of time, all the things that I have with me today. It's like when I'm moaning and groaning about a few aches and pains, and I see others who are suffering much more than I, it makes me appreciate the fact that these little pains and aches are not a very big problem at all. I'm able to put things into perspective. And so let me appreciate. In the feeling of gratitude for what God has given me, there's a great sense of gratefulness. There's a sense of contentment that can allow happiness to grow and develop. In a state of discontent and desires, it's not possible for me either to be peaceful or to be happy. And so contentment with myself, first of all, comes from appreciation. Not just the appreciation of the physical things that I have, but even more so, let me appreciate the gifts, the talents, the specialities that nature, the universe, God has given me. And when I start appreciating my own gifts, then I also start using them and sharing them in service of others. And that brings me blessings from them also. And I'm able to take benefit from that further. Contentment also comes from knowing that I am the writer of my own destiny, the creator of my own destiny. If destiny is a picture, then I am the one with the pen to be able to draw the line of destiny for myself. At this moment of time, how I use all that I have is going to create my destiny for myself. I can be very content knowing that it's in my hands. I am responsible and I can choose whatever it is I want for my own future. How can I have contentment with those around me? Sometimes we say, if only it wasn't for this individual, my life would be so much easier, so much more comfortable. We forget that that individual has come into my life, perhaps to be my teacher, perhaps to teach me lessons that otherwise I wouldn't have learned. And so let me appreciate the individual who's causing me great discomfort, because that's also a way to be able to have spiritual development and progress. It's possible to see the beauty in every single human being, to see the uniqueness of the role of every human being. And when I focus my vision in this way, seeing their specialities, seeing their talents, seeing the things that they're doing, which perhaps I can't do, let me appreciate them, and then I'll be more content in my dealings with them, and my appreciation in a very genuine way of them is going to bring a response of contentment from them for me also. And so seeing specialities is important. Another thing is humility. Where people pick up ego from me, then there's going to be discontent. There's going to be many problems. But if, together with my own inner state of self-respect, I'm able to give them respect and have the humility to give them that respect that I should be giving them, whether they deserve it or not. That isn't even a question for me to ask, because surely what I have to do is to see the original inner quality of every human being, and then even if there are lapses at the present moment, even if there are things that are not as they should be, yet seeing the original truth and beauty of the human spirit, I'm able to see their dignity and give them the respect that I should. And so self-esteem together with humility within myself means that I'm able to give them respect, and that's going to create an atmosphere of contentment. In little ways where we don't value and respect others around us, maybe we're not respecting their time, maybe we're not respecting their skills, different things happen. Our relationship deteriorates, and one thing builds on another, and a whole block is built up, in which then there's not just a feeling of discontent, but the whole relationship is of discontent. If I want to be able to enjoy life, I can't be content in isolation. I have to be able to have contentment in my relationship with them and their relationship with me. And humility is a very key factor in this respect. Another aspect about contentment with others around me is to ask myself the question, am I a giver or a taker? How much am I giving and how much am I taking? So often we don't keep a proper check of this account, which means that I take a lot more than I give. I'm going to be in debt, and people are not going to be very happy or contented with me. Whether it's their time, their energy, their support, their cooperation, if it's always a demand, I want, they can't be satisfied with me. How can I change that? In the normal human context, difficult, because there's so much that I need that I'm constantly taking. But spirituality teaches me that if I build up a link with the Supreme, with the Divine, I'm able to receive from the Divine to an infinite degree. I'm able to take as much as I wish. I don't need to take from people around me anymore. Rather, I'm then able to start giving. People around me are very content if I can give them something, and why not? Let me be the one who, instead of taking, is actually able to give, and let me share all the treasures that God is making available. That's definitely going to give a situation in which there's contentment. How can I have the guarantee that God is content with me? Let me first of all understand what are God's instructions for my life as a human being. Let me understand what are the laws of spirituality, so that I'm observing those laws in my life. Yes, it requires a little bit of discipline, but discipline never hurt anyone. Let me follow God's laws with love in my heart, not out of force, not simply because it is a discipline, but out of love, because I know that that's going to make God happy, but also it's going to make my life much better. The other factor about pleasing God is honesty. If I can have a conscience that's completely clear and clean, I can then make sure that honesty in my relationship with God is completely pure and strong. And in that relationship of true honesty with God, Yes, I know that God is content with me. Contentment with myself, because I know that I'm moving in the right direction. Contentment with others through humility and respect. Contentment in the relationship with the Supreme. If I can check out all three areas of contentment, my life will be very full and satisfying. The state of contentment isn't a state of stagnation. The state of contentment means I'm stable, and with stability, I'm able to move forward. If a car isn't stable with its four wheels, it isn't able to move forward. So stability doesn't mean stagnation. Stability rather means being able to have the movement of speed. And so contentment means creating stability. The goal that I have, the destination I would like to arrive at, is further ahead. I know that I haven't reached it yet, and so I'm not going to just sit down, but moving forward with contentment means that I'm not going to cause problems around me. Discontentment means I create ripples of unease wherever it is I go. Contentment means comfort with the self, comfort with others, comfort for others with me. I move ahead steadily towards my destination, to the state of perfection, which is where I'd like to reach. Let's experience a few minutes of silence together and emerge this feeling of fulfillment. Aware of who I truly am, the spiritual being, the being of light. I connect with the Supreme. God's treasures are infinite. God's love is the ocean. God's love, God's joy, God's power fills the soul. I realize that this is what I have been seeking. God offers me more than I need, more than I ever thought was possible. God offers infinite treasures. I fill myself with that love and joy. And in the state of union, communion with the Supreme, there is such contentment that in the state of being full, the treasures overflow and reach others. God's love, God's joy reaches out and flows in all directions. Keeping this connection and this feeling of contentment, I return to the present moment and the things here. And as I do this, I keep my connection with the Divine so that I can share God's treasures. Om Shanti.